This episode of the Bottle Rocket podcast is brought to you by GamerClips.tv. Play, share and watch video game frags and clips with hundreds more added every day. Hit the link in the comments section to check them out.
Yeah, I would say we're just going to talk about kickstarting and see where it takes us.
Yeah, so last week we said we were going to talk a bit about Kickstarted projects and the sort of pros and cons. And one that drew my eye over this last week was this. It's called Bloodsport. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I have not. I have not heard of Bloodsport, the game. I'm more just Bloodsport, the sport.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just reading through the article on CNET, and it says the normal situation of donating blood in a comfy chair hooked up to a blood drawing machine, munching on cookies and drinking juices is nice and comfy. But if that sounds way too relaxed for you, you might be interested in Bloodsport, a system that turns the act of donating blood into a competitive gaming situation. When your character in the game takes damage, the system draws blood to go into the donation bag. Rinse and repeat until you've reached your recommended donation quantity.
That sounds ridiculous. Like, I mean, why?
It sounds dangerous.
It does sound quite dangerous. So when your character takes damage, can you play like one-on-one with somebody else?
I presume so, because it's like a two-player system.
Right, I see. So you're sort of against somebody else and trying to take all their blood and put it into a bag?
So. It's been suspended by Kickstarter.
Because it's ridiculous.
Can you guess why?
Yes. There was this mildly awful Justin Timberlake film a couple of years back.
Which
I think
one?
called. I think. Hey, he does some good stuff sometimes. I think it was called In Time or Out of Time or something like that.
Yeah, in
Well,
time, yeah.
Yeah, where everybody had like those like the length of time they had to live on their arms, and they had these weird wrestling matches with that. I can just kind of imagine a game of Bloodsport being kind of like that, in that you're just kind of trying to wrestle somebody, and you just have to get enough blood out of them so they pass out and you win. Sounds like an awful idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's a picture of a very happy-looking guy here with a control pad that's hooked up to his to one of the veins in his arm. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
How far did they get? Does the article say? Did they like build prototypes? Did they test this on humans?
I think.
Or concerningly, did they test it on animals?
I think if you they raised they had a goal of $222,000. They'd raised $3,000.
Okay. Yeah, a little way to go.
Well, a little way to go, but you can see the prototype in action at the Bloodsport team's apartment.
Oh, I do not want to go there.
And in action, and you can receive the code and hardware information needed to make your own.
Oh Christ! Like, here is a needle, here is a bag, here is a pump.
It can't end well, surely.
No, that's not good. That's not good at all. That's like some from dystopian sci-fi future.
Yeah,
That's
but I mean,
ridiculous.
I think that's a good example of a Kickstarter gone too far.
I'd say so.
The idea of Kickstarters is to give people with new and interesting ideas a way to get them out and get them into the market. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, by suspending that game, do you send the wrong message, or you know what I mean? I know it's a bad idea, but
Like, as in, like, do Kickstarter have a responsibility to protect the world from dreadful ideas?
yeah,
I don't know if that's in the spirit of Kickstarter
that's
in
what
some
I'm saying.
ways. Like, I think, it should be kind of Darwinian in some ways. Like,
Yeah, if you buy
the,
that, then you're stupid enough to be killed by it.
yes, yeah, I think so. is basically what I was going for. Like, if enough people buy this, then presumably we need less people. So would be one way of looking at it. A little extreme, maybe. But then I guess I'm not the one who's making a video game that draws blood out of you. So, I think this is all relative.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I think Kickstarter can do a hell of a lot of good, like as well as the obvious dreadfulness and fraud. Like there's so many stories of just people just running off with the money. Like you were telling me earlier about board game developers just take.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was looking at a guy that he was making a board game called the Doom that came to Atlantic City, and it drew a lot of attention on Kickstarter. It was looking for $35,000 to start up with. He ended up getting $122,000. 13 months later, the project was cancelled, and the developing company said they'd run out of money.
Yeah.
They came out with all these excuses, like they'd paid for all the miniature statues, they'd paid to start up the company, they'd paid for software licenses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
The price of cocaine is quite high these days.
Well, there's that as well, but
Hookers don't buy themselves, that sort of thing.
But it's like giving somebody's got a decent idea, but doesn't know how to implement it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you're giving large wads of money to people with presumably no business sense, because if they had business sense, they'd have applied to a bank. And Kickstarter are very clear to say, and all the other crowdfunding websites are very clear to say, it's like you're not buying a finished product at all. You're taking a gigantic risk on the fact that these people may or may not actually build the thing that they're going to build.
Another one I was looking at was Neil Stevenson. He's a sci-fi author. He's wrote books like Snow Crash and Cryptonomicon. Back in 2012, he started work on a sword fighting game called Clang. Now it raised $526,000 on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
He said, he's not happy with how sword fighting is portrayed in games today. It could be so much better. It's time for a revolution. And I suppose that sort of idea resonates with a lot of gaming fans.
Yeah. Nice use of the word resonate in a game called Clang.
Well,
by the way.
It's not scripted, I promise. No. So he's found an idea that a lot of people will be interested in.
Yeah.
He's got $500,000.
Yes.
So a year later, he announced that they'd burnt through all the money and asked people to be patient while they looked for more money.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
A year after that update.
I think I did hear about this actually, like originally when he was making it, and I did think it was a really good idea. This is somebody who does like a lot of sword fighting with actual swords, and like the way that medieval knights used to hit each other with swords is nothing like the kind of kung fu ballet that we get in video games. So it seemed like a really good idea, and I'm quite sad to hear that it sounds like it's all gone Pete Tong.
Yeah, so a year after that update, they announced to the backers that the project was dead in the water. It turns out after working on it for 2 years that his team developed a boring game that wasn't very fun to play. Which sort of begs the question, perhaps the way that video games do it now, although it's not realistic, it's fun.
Yeah.
Maybe. He said he probably focused too much on the historical accuracy and not enough on making it sufficiently fun to attract additional investment.
Yeah.
$500,000 worth of historical accuracy. What does that mean? What does that get you?
Well, maybe one could say this is a $500,000 experiment on how to make a really not very fun sword game, or to just kind of absolutely prove beyond all doubt that the way sword fighting is portrayed in video games at the moment is the only fun way to do it, having tried all other options. So maybe the people who sent him money can rest easy knowing that.
It says here that they processed refunds for more than 30 people. a total of just $700.
Nice. Brilliant. But he's got a lot of sweet swords now. And I think, yeah, I do remember reading about this idea originally, and thinking that's a reasonable idea. Like, I quite liked Bushido Blade, Bushido. I can never pronounce it. Bushido Blade, on the PlayStation 1, which was it sort of came out in the kind of Tekken 1 era of fighting games, the Virtua Fighter kind of time. So everything was quite blocky.
Yeah.
And it was a realistic samurai sword fighting game where you basically just kind of stood staring at each other in a snow-covered meadow with blossom floating down somewhere. Then a single blow would kill your opponent if timed and struck correctly. And that was a really fun game compared to other ones like, I think, like Soul Calibur and things like that, where you just kind of hit somebody again and again and again with a long sword. Um, so I think the idea of a realistic sword fighting game has legs, and I can kind of understand why people might have been taken in by that. But yeah, I think you'd begin to have your doubts when he's not got anything to show for it a year later and £500,000 in.
Yeah, definitely. But again, a sci-fi writer
Yeah.
has an idea
Yeah.
about how games should work.
Yes.
You've got to take a step back and think, if you want to pledge money to that idea, you need to be giving it to somebody who knows what they're doing.
I think so. Exactly. I think the more successful Kickstarters tend to be those that are run by video game developers, essentially.
Yeah.
And people who created video games back in the day and are looking to kind of resurrect genres and things like that. I think a lot of kind of good stuff has come out of that. Or, smaller developers that are looking to take on bigger projects. Like, as in people, surprisingly, the best Kickstarters are the ones that make the most business sense. So, the developers that have already produced a number of small titles and want to make a bigger one, or the developers that have got a number of big titles to their name and want to produce something kind of sensible and indie that appeals their own sensibilities. In those sorts of situations, weirdly, they do really well.
Yeah. What I've tended to notice is that I sort of already established sort of characters and content, if it's taken out and put into a different form by somebody else, that generates a lot of steam. Like in 2011, there was a documentary film project covering Minecraft.
Okay.
Called Minecraft: The Story of Mojang, and it was done by a group called Two Player Productions. They asked for $150,000. They ended up getting $210,000, and it premiered on Xbox Live in December 2012, and did everything it could, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a Mega Man board game that was made by Jasco Games earlier this year, actually, and they wanted $70,000 to make the game. They got $415,000 through Kickstarter.
Why? Like, I mean,
because it's Mega Man.
It's
Because they've taken a popular figure in gaming culture and put him into a setting where he hasn't been before.
Yes. The experience Mega Man is you've always wanted to experience it on a table made of plastic.
Exactly. I mean, where did that other $330,000 go?
I know. I mean, to be honest, I know nothing about producing a board game or the expenditure involved. But I can't imagine it's that hard to budget for. I mean, how big it's going to be, how much the piece is going to cost. And I guess the kind of designing process of it could take any length of time. But to actually physically make the board game is only going to cost so much, surely.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously the previous board game we were talking about obviously fell down because they by the looks of it, to me, they obviously made too many units before selling any. You know, they spent too much money on the little, you know, figurines for the game, and didn't actually ship any
The game.
any of the actual game. So they just ran out of money. But yeah, it can't be.
It's despicable. I think because one of the things I love about Kickstarter and other crowdfunding is the idea of stretch goals. And you know, if you do give us an obscene amount of money, we'll do this. There was I can't bloody remember it. I will probably remember as soon as we finish this podcast. But there's a space flight simulator that essentially has kind of got a lot of traction a few months back as well. And essentially they got something like an extra, like double, maybe treble what they originally put in. And every single stretch goal, they basically said, like, we're going to create this new ship. We're going to create this new ship. We're going to create this new ship. And it was great because it meant that people, as they put in money, they could actually physically see what that was creating and what that was kind of adding to the game.
That's important. You know, you can't just go away for 12 months and come back and say, oh well, all that money you gave us, we couldn't do anything with it. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye.
Yeah, this seemed like such a better idea. I will try and find out what it's called because it looked really cool, and it was kind of like everybody who donates this much gets to start with a super carrier kind of thing. I will find out for it because it's actually a really, really good one. We should probably put a link to it.
What I don't agree with though is the amount of sequels that you see in Kickstarter projects. Octodad 2, Nexus 2, Auditorium 2, Wasteland 2, Class of Heroes 2. You know, if the first game was a success, they wouldn't need the Kickstarter money for the sequel, surely.
Yeah.
So why are you making it if the first one wasn't a success?
Yeah, exactly. Concerning, right? I don't mind the idea of kind of reviving something that's been long dead for a new sequel. That makes more sense to me. But yeah, the idea that you need to then kickstart your next project as well kind of loses the definition of Kickstarter.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, the spaceflight sim is called Star Citizen, by the way. And they are currently up to 2.134 million of a 500,000 original thing.
Damn.
But
I mean, that's it. You've just got to find a popular IP. I mean, like, obviously you know about the Shadowrun universe. Back in 2012, there's a Kickstarter started for that for a single player RPG called Shadowrun Returns. That after asking for $400,000, got 1.8 million. I don't actually know what the status on that is.
yeah,
And
but
whether actually what actually happened, because I've never heard of. Apparently it came out in 2013 and I've never even heard of the game.
yeah,
And that had 1.8 million go into it. So
yeah. I think it is really exciting, like these kind of new ways of us as the public being able to kind of directly influence what games get produced. But at the same time, it does open up a whole new avenue for us to be scammed.
definitely.
You know, it is.
I mean, all you need is a good pitch.
Yeah, and potentially that's easier to do than producing a crap game. But yeah, you know, we get scammed by AAA developers all the time, and it's kind of nice, I think, to add some variety to the people that are trying to scam us as well. Like, I feel maybe we should be thankful. But there was something that caught my eye, which was an article that Jim Sterling wrote on his vlog, the Jimquisition, which is about Earth 2066, which is a Steam Greenlight project. So Greenlight's kind of a similar a kind of similar deal to Kickstarter, but you need a beta
Yeah.
in some ways, in that it just basically allows developers to release their game in unfinished alpha or beta state. People pay money for it um, in the hope that the developer will actually finish the game. And Earth 2066 retailed at 20 US dollars and was a mess. Like it was just like go and just Google some Let's Plays on it. After finishing this video, go and have a look at some Let's
I will
Plays
do that.
of Earth 2066. But it's just the most horrible looking thing that probably took somebody a day to make, and and had the nerve, the gall to charge $20 for it. And the particular heinousness about this one was that, as well as kind of bringing down the whole reputation of Steam Greenlight, which titles like this, they're not alone. This is quite an extreme example of it. But the guy who made this game the developer of the games in Steam Greenlight always control their own forums, or they have moderating privileges. So he just systematically deleted any negative reviews of it. So whenever anybody would kind of buy it and post on the forum attached to the games, like this is awful, like I want my $20 back, then he'd just delete it and launch attacks on people that dare to negatively publicize his game, and just to keep the scam rolling. Until they got pulled by Greenlight, and now he can't make games for Steam anymore. Oh yeah, and they also use to post fake positive reviews using shell accounts. So would create another create another account and produce a positive review of the game. It's
They should be. There's no punishment.
I know it's awful, and Steam cracked down on it as well. They should, because I really love the idea of Steam Greenlight in the same way that I really love the idea of Kickstarter, in that it allows us as players to directly influence what gets developed and what doesn't. But at the same time, it needs moderating. It needs some form of quality control. Otherwise, you just end up with this big steaming pile. Like I bought my first game in beta, which I've never done actually. I've never really had the opportunity to do it until recent years. But I bought Galactic Civilizations 3, the beta version, and I bought it because I loved Galactic Civilizations 2. I know Stardock are an exceptionally well-run company and have a very good ethos, and have continued to support Galactic Civilizations 2 long after its release, like releasing kind of expansion after expansion. The patches and the support was fantastic. So I have no doubt that they'll finish the damn game. But I kind of felt comfortable with giving them my money to support them in developing this thing. And I've managed to snap it up at a price that's lower than retail. So it's something that kind of makes you feel a bit warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, when you're able to kind of support a developer who you do respect. But I think there's a lot of opportunities to spew money on people that aren't going to finish their game, or that are just trying to scam you.
And stuff like that out there.
Yeah, exactly. Who are clearly in it for the love, and have proven track records. And then you get people that are just kind of having a punt. Like, for example, I really love that Beamdog, who are a company that I didn't know particularly well. Forgive me if they've done loads of stuff that I'm completely unaware of, but they've been releasing enhanced editions of the Baldur's Gate series.
Yes, yeah. You told me about these before.
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're basically one of the criticisms that leveled against them is that if you really wanted to, you could buy the original Baldur's Gates which are fantastic role-playing games, on Good Old Games or equivalent, and download a fuck ton of mods and make it look pretty similar. But they've created a nice widescreen, high definition package with extra characters and more quests and nice little extras and things like that, and new art and films and things like that. And they've done it to try and generate a track record so that people will back them to make Baldur's Gate 3, which I think is great. Like, that's such a nice business model.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, give us a little bit so we can show you what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you like it, come back and we'll make the game that you've all been asking for 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah, they didn't just kind of go on Kickstarter and say, give us a bazillion pounds to make Baldur's Gate 3. They said, we're going to remaster Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. We're going to remaster Icewind Dale before we even think about attempting to make Baldur's Gate 3.
That's why I'm a big fan of companies like Subset Games who make Faster Than Light. So they went on with a really modest $10,000 Kickstarter campaign. And,
yeah.
As people saw what it was about and got interested, it ended up rolling up to 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they made 190,000 more than they wanted to do. But that was just because of the sort of the interest in it that got generated, and it's that sort of modest approach.
Yeah.
Not your we don't need $500,000 to make a game that probably won't work. We'll just take a little bit and show you what we can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
FTL
use that
is
success to then go on and make more games, rather than walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars of people's hard-earned money.
Yeah, and FTL is wonderful. It's an absolutely wonderful little game.
Exactly.
And
it's different. It's fresh, and without the Kickstarter platform, we wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's quite a nice, positive note to wrap this one up on.
Yeah.
Kickstarter can do a lot of good in the
It can
world.
do a lot of good. Just be careful for the assholes that try and rip you off.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.